I thought I had it all figured out. I had the woman I loved, a beautiful son, and what seemed like a bright future ahead. But life doesn't always follow the script we write. And sometimes, when you least expect it, everything you thought you knew just falls apart. I had a solid 5 years of dating her. We were married for 7 years, but little by little, things started to change. Arguments, betrayals, a personality I didn't recognize. I was hanging on, trying to fix it, but everything started slipping through my fingers. It wasn't just the marriage, it was everything. The feeling of not being enough, of not understanding how we got here. The fights, the back and forth, the pain. And then came the moment that I didn't expect, the moment that hit me like a ton of bricks. We separated, and I was left standing in the wreckage of a life I thought would last forever. Alone, confused. But still, somehow, I knew I had to find a way out. I had to rise. It wasn't just the end of a relationship. It was the end of my old self. I moved back in with my parents, with my son, with no idea what to do next. What do you do when your dreams shatter and you're starting from scratch? Well, you get up. That's what I did. I didn't know exactly how, but I knew I had to. After the dust settled, after the court papers were signed and the silence became permanent, I packed my bags and moved back to the one place I never thought I'd return, my childhood home. I was in my 30s, divorced, broke, carrying nothing but a backpack full of clothes and a heart full of regret. There's a weight that comes with walking back through your parents' door, as a man, not as a visitor, not for a holiday, but as someone who's starting over from scratch. They welcomed me with love. Of course they did, but inside I felt small, like I had failed, like I had disappointed not just myself, but them. Every day in that house was a reminder of where I came from, of how far I'd fallen, of everything I thought I had, now gone. I'd lie in bed at night, staring at the ceiling I used to dream under as a kid. But now those dreams felt distant, even foolish. And yet, in that same room, with nothing but my thoughts, I started hearing something deeper. Not the voice of guilt, not the echo of shame, but a whisper. This is not where your story ends. This is where it begins again. There's a pain no one prepares you for. Watching the woman you once called your wife move on with someone else. At first, you try to act like it doesn't bother you. You pretend to be strong, to be above it. You even tell yourself, it's better this way. But then, you see the photos, you hear the stories, you picture your son sleeping in another man's house. You imagine him calling someone else cool or laughing at his jokes, and it hits you not like a punch, more like a slow burn that never stops. She was different now. The woman I once knew, gone, replaced by someone I didn't recognize anymore, living with another man, a guy with tattoos, a new life, and a version of her that maybe never truly existed while she was with me. At first I felt anger, resentment, disgust, but behind all of that was pain, real, raw pain. Not because I wanted her back, but because I hadn't moved forward. She was building a new life, and I was still picking up the pieces of mine. And then the questions came. Was I not good enough? Was I too blind, too slow, too soft? Did I waste all those years? But eventually, I realized something powerful. The end of her chapter didn't have to be the end of my story. I could keep staring at the past, or I could rewrite the future. The bills didn't wait for me to heal. Pain doesn't pay rent. So I got on my motorcycle and started riding. Uber moto, helmet on, heart heavy, eyes forward, pretending I wasn't broken inside. I rode through traffic, rain, heat, silence, sometimes 12, 14 hours a day. People hopped on and off the back of my bike, strangers with destinations. But I was still lost, yet something strange started happening. In the middle of the chaos, I began to listen, not to the passengers, but to a deeper voice, the voice of God. Every red light felt like a pause he created. Every engine hum was a whisper, keep going, I'm with you. I remember one ride. I was exhausted, haven't eaten, my body sore. Then a man sat behind me and said, brother, God doesn't waste pain. Your breakthrough is closer than you think. I never told him what I was going through. He just said it, like God himself used his voice. And in that moment, something inside me cracked, and light started leaking through. I realized Ubermoto wasn't a punishment. It was my altar, my training ground, my classroom, and every ride was part of the process God was using to rebuild me. One morning, after a long ride shift, I looked at myself in the mirror. Not just my face, but the man I had become, and I didn't like what I saw. Tired, drained, heavy, not just in body, but in spirit. So I made a decision. Start moving. No gym, no fancy equipment, just 30 minutes in my room. Body weight, sweat, breath. I started with squats, then push-ups. Some days it was just stretching, but every drop of sweat was a prayer. Each repetition wasn't just building muscle, it was rebuilding me, my discipline, my confidence, my identity. And then, after each session, I'd sit on the floor, close my eyes, and breathe. Meditation became my secret weapon. At first, it was hard. My mind raced. The pain screamed louder than the silence. But over time, I discovered a place inside me where everything was still and God spoke, not in thunder, but in peace, in clarity. He reminded me, "You were made for more." And every day, as my body grew stronger, my soul woke up. I was no longer just surviving, I was training, preparing, awakening, because the man who was broken was slowly being rebuilt into something unshakable. I had rebuilt my body. I had reconnected with my soul. Now, it was time to reprogram my mind. Because no matter how much you work, if your mind is stuck in survival, you'll never step into abundance. So, I started studying, late nights, early mornings, on breaks between Uber rides, while eating, while resting, while walking. Podcasts, books, videos, lectures, everything about mindset, money and purpose. And I discovered something that shook me. Wealth isn't about how much you make. It's about how much you believe you're worth. I had lived years chasing crumbs, because deep down, I thought that's all I deserved. But when I changed that belief, everything shifted. I learned that money flows to clarity, to purpose, to bold action, and most importantly, to belief. So I wrote affirmations. I visualized my dream life. I stopped speaking defeat. I started saying things like, I attract opportunities. I create value. I'm building generational wealth. And little by little, I began to believe it. Because faith isn't about seeing, it's about choosing to believe before it shows up. I looked at my life and said, this ends with me. The lack, the doubt, the fear. I'm cutting that off, right now. I no longer saw myself as a victim of my past. I became a student of success, a builder of vision, a magnet for purpose. And once that belief took root, the results started showing up. All the mindset in the world means nothing if you don't move your feet. So once my mind shifted, I knew I had to put what I learned into action. No more waiting, no more excuses. It was time to build. So I made a list, not of dreams, but of daily actions. First, I kept grinding on Ubermoto. I tracked every ride, every real cost. I optimized my hours, treated it like a business, not a side hustle. Second, I organized my finances. I started writing everything down, income, expenses, debts. And I realized I wasn't broke, I was disorganized. Third, I stopped emotional spending. No more buying to feel better. If it didn't build me or my future, I cut it. Fourth, I dove into the digital world. I learned about affiliate marketing, digital products, YouTube automation. I studied channels that made money in silence. No faces, no fame, just systems. And then I built my own. I launched content in English and Portuguese. I used AI to write scripts, text-to-speech tools to narrate, CapCut to edit. I made one video a day, no matter what. Fifth, I started testing multiple income streams, info products, affiliate offers, monetized shorts, high CTR thumbnails, SEO optimized descriptions, and everything I could automate, I did. Each small result fueled the next step. I wasn't rich yet, but I was freeing myself, brick by brick, because that's how wealth is built, not by luck, but by deliberate repetition of smart moves. His name is Samuel, my son, my reason, my mirror. Every time I hear his voice, it reminds me of why I fight. I don't just want to give him toys or clothes or money. I want to give him a father he can be proud of, a man who didn't quit, who didn't run, who stared at rock bottom and said, "Watch me rise." I want him to know that pain is not the end. It's the beginning of purpose, that when life breaks you, you don't stay broken. You build again. I want him to grow up with the memory of a father who woke up before the sun, rode in the rain to provide, trained his body when no one was watching, prayed in silence, worked in faith, built something from nothing. I don't want to pass on generational trauma. I want to pass on generational strength, because the world is already full of noise. I want to be his signal, his example, his blueprint. If one day he asks, "Dad, how did you do it?" I'll tell him, "I trusted God. I trusted the process. And I never stopped showing up, even when it hurt, because legacy isn't what you leave for your children. It's what you leave in them." There was a time I believed I had to choose, be spiritual or be wealthy, as if wanting more was selfish, as if abundance was only for others. But then I looked deeper, into scripture, into myself, into the patterns of those who walked with power and purpose, and I saw the truth. Poverty was never part of the promise. God doesn't get glory from your suffering. He gets glory from your growth, from your healing, from your transformation. And I realized spirituality and wealth are not enemies. They're partners. One without the other is imbalance. If you have money but no mission, you're lost. If you have faith but no action, you're stuck. True abundance is when you walk with God and create with your hands. When your bank account grows as your soul expands. When your success is no longer about flexing, but about blessing. Now, I don't chase money. I attract it through service, through value, through alignment. I stopped begging and started building. I stopped complaining and started creating. Because when you walk in divine identity, everything you touch can multiply. I don't want to be rich just to escape struggle. I want to be rich to elevate others, to hire, to teach, to bless, to show the next generation that you can serve God and still live in overflow. So here I am, still in the same house I grew up in, still waking up at 4 a.m., still grinding, still building, but I am not the same man who walked back through that door, broken. I've been through fire, I've been through silence, I've been through days I didn't know how to keep going, but I did, every single day. I stood when it hurt. I trained when I was tired. I prayed when I didn't have words. I loved my son even when I didn't love myself. And now I'm rising. Not because life got easier, but because I got stronger. People ask me, "How did you do it?" And the truth is, I didn't do it alone. It was grace, it was grit, it was God, and it was a decision to not stay down, to not let my story end in ashes, to take every broken piece and build a new foundation. I don't have all the answers. I'm not at the top yet, but I'm climbing with purpose, with fire, with faith. And I want you to know this. You can too. No matter how far you've fallen, no matter who left, no matter what broke, there's still something inside you that can rise again, not just to survive, but to build a legacy, to live in abundance, to walk in destiny, to become a light for others. This is not your end. This is your rebirth. And if you're ready to rise, I'll meet you at the top.